Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Lineo Toolo, one of the facilitators of Matthew Goniwe project. And my presentation this afternoon is on the module TAM2601. The name of the module is Teacher as a Manager. In other words, you may not be the head of the department at your school, but you are most definitely a manager of your classroom. The preparation for examination will be done this afternoon. That is what the presentation is all about. Now remember, our prescribed book is called Teacher as Classroom Manager by J.L. Weideman and S.P. Mokoena. Now, the book itself has 14 chapters, but for this module, you only focus on 8 chapters. Chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. If you have studied all these 8 chapters, then you are ready to write exams on Teacher as a Manager. Now, under chapter 1 talks about the millennial generation, understanding and engaging today's learners. You need to be able to define millennial generation by birth and by name. You need to know characteristics of the millennial generation. You must be able to mention and discuss in your own words what makes millennials, or there is millennial generation, different from all other generations. You need to know the core traits of the millennial generation. Now, more often the students are confusing characteristics and the core traits. You need to know the difference between the core traits and the characteristics and make sure that you don't mix them up. Now, you need to know what those are. Under chapter 1 still, you are taught about the learning styles. The learning styles of the millennial generation are very important. You need to know them, and you need to know how different these learning styles are from the learning styles of other generations. You need to know those styles. You also need to understand how to engage today's learners, that is the millennial generation. You as a teacher, you need to understand and know your learners, how to communicate with them at their level, and how to enable them to communicate with you. Now, still under chapter 1, we have what we call the digital divide. What is the digital divide? What does it mean? And what are the causes of this digital divide? How does it benefit some learners? And how does it disadvantage other learners? What can you do as a teacher to assist those learners who are digitally disadvantaged, and how to take an advantage of the digital divide to educate all your learners? Now, under chapter 2, the heading of chapter 2 is self-management for the educator. As an educator, you need to be able to manage yourself. The first thing that you need to manage is your emotions. What are the positive and negative results in the class? In other words, if you can't manage your emotions, there will be negative results. If you can manage your emotions, it means then you will come out with positive results. Now, as teachers, we have stress. You need to know about stress management. You need to know the consequences of stress and how to cope with stress as a teacher. You need to have those coping strategies. You also need to know about anger management, Remember, colleagues, remember, ladies and gentlemen, that teachers are normal human beings. As a result, once in a while, a teacher may be angry. You may be angered by the very learners that you are trying to teach, but you need to know how to manage that. Because if you don't do that, there will be negative behaviors that you display as a teacher. And then you may encounter problems. So make sure that you also manage your anger. Now, know about all these things. Under chapter 2, still managing conflict and becoming assertive. There will be conflicts from time to time, either between you as a teacher and your learners or among the learners themselves. As a teacher, you need to know how to manage that because it is important. And also you need to become assertive. You need to know what is it that you need to do in order to be assertive. In the first place, you need to know the meaning of the word assertive. It is important to be emotionally intelligent as a teacher. And then you need to know how will this help your learners or help you to manage your classroom. That is chapter 2. Now we are coming to chapter 3. The heading of chapter 3 is Introduction to Classroom Management Tasks. There are tasks that you need to manage in the classroom. You need to know which tasks are we talking about. In the first place, the nature and aim of classroom management. What is it that you are managing? You are managing as a teacher. You can't just be a manager who does not have a plan. You need to know, what is it that I need to manage? And then, number 2, there are different approaches that are going to assist you as a teacher to manage specific tasks. So there are different classroom approaches, and all these approaches have got advantages and they also have disadvantages. In other words, if you have to choose an approach, you need to know what are the advantages and the disadvantages and compare. You need to know all those things. The third thing that is important under chapter 3 is Ubuntu, Africanization of classroom management. We are Africans. We are living on the African continent, and we know that Ubuntu is our principle as Africans. We cannot teach learners without instilling or even teaching them about the meaning of Ubuntu, because that is what makes us African, and that is very important to embrace and integrate into your lessons in class. Now, number 4, you need to plan. Planning is very important. If, like they say, if you can't plan, remember, you will always not know what to do. So you need to be able to know that for today, this is what I'm going to do, and this is the approach that I'm going to take in order to perform this task. And then these are the outcomes that I am expecting. That is what planning involves. And then we go to chapter 4. The heading for chapter 4 is the teacher as leader. Remember, you are the manager, you are also the leader. And there is a difference between a manager and a leader. Not all managers are leaders, remember. Now, you need to know what a leader means. As a teacher, under chapter 4, what is important? The long-term leadership task. Leadership is a task that each and every educator must learn. Now, go and study figure 4.1. It will give you a model of long-term leadership. Remember, we are here, but we are planning to be long-term leaders as educators or as teachers. You also need to know about the short-term leadership role of the educator. Now, if you study figure 4.2, it will demonstrate to you the model of short-term leadership. Because we are here, you need to know what to do now as a leader. So that is very important. 4.3 talks about leadership styles. There are different leadership styles. As an educator, you may choose one style for one lesson, or you may find yourself mixing up 2 or 3 leadership styles. You need to go back and check what are the leadership styles that are mentioned in our book. In other words, you need to know all 3 of them. They are thoroughly explained. Now, what you need to do after learning and understanding them, you need to know how to apply them in class. What is the good of you understanding these types of leadership styles without applying them in class? The most important thing that you need to be able to do is for you to make your own examples. A question may arise that says, explain this leadership style and give us an example or a scenario on how you will apply it in class. You must be able to think of a scenario. Some of us are already teachers, some are not teachers yet, but you were students at some stage. You were learners at some stage. So you would know, you would be able to come up with an example to say, let's say, for example, the learners are behaving like this. As a teacher, I can use this leadership style, which I think is more suitable. That is what leadership styles are all about. Now, under chapter 5, the heading of chapter 5 is managing the classroom environment. You need to manage the classroom environment so that it can be positive all the time. Otherwise, you will always be in a class with a very negative environment and then I don't think you as a teacher can do a better job in an environment that is a negative. Even the learners, I do not think they will be able to learn in a classroom that has a negative environment. Now, the first thing that is important, the classroom as a learning community. You need to know that learners in each and every class are a learning community. Now, thereafter, you need to know what are the features of a learning community. What does it mean? What is it that I need to expect? In other words, what is the behavior of learners when they are together in a classroom, when they are a learning community? There are building stages for a positive classroom climate. As a teacher, you need to know about these stages because you need to make sure that you are going to apply these stages in order for you to build or to create a positive classroom climate. Now, managing the physical environment. You know, the way the furniture is sitting inside your classroom can actually influence the whole environment of the class. So you need to know whether as a teacher, are you going to face the learners? Let's say, for example, when you teach, you give your learners your back and you are facing the chalkboard. Do you think it will be beneficial to the learners? Well, I don't know. Go and learn from your book on managing the physical environment. Do you think children must sit facing one another or facing the chalkboard, all of them? It is up to you what you have learned and be able to apply in the classroom. You need to know that. And you need to know how this physical environment is going to affect the whole classroom climate. Now, managing the resources for effective teaching. You have a lot of things in class. These days we have our computers, we have the magazines, you may have the cell phones where children can use, to get into the internet and do some research. All those things need to be properly managed. Those are the resources that you as a teacher need to use. But you need to make sure that you use them in an effective way. Otherwise, you will not find any benefit from using them. Okay, under managing the resources, we have independence strategies. Do you want your learners to be independent? How do you make sure that whilst all the learners put together are a learning community, but at the same time, they become independent? Because education is not about putting the learners in a situation where they will become dependent on one another. They need to be interdependent. However, as individuals, they also need to be independent. What are those strategies? How do you implement them in order that they benefit the learners and they also benefit you as a teacher? The flipped classroom, and of course, establishing the social-emotional environment, because children may be properly seated, either facing one another or facing you as a teacher, but if there is a negative social-emotional environment, then it means they may not be able to learn properly. So how do you establish that? In the first place, you need to know what is the meaning of socio-emotional environment. And now you can then learn how to establish it in order that the learners can learn properly, and then you as a teacher can also teach effectively. Under chapter 5 still, managing the classroom environment, we have communication. Communication is very important. You need to know what is communication. Sometimes we take things for granted that no, communication is communication. I communicate with you all the time. Okay, but what does it mean? Does it mean when I talk? Because sometimes you talk, is the other person getting the message? Is the other person getting the real message or interpretative message? So you need to know what communication is. You need to know the methods of communication. There are different methods of communicating. You need to know what those are. And what is also important is to know the barriers to effective communication. There are things that prevent communication to be effective. What are those things? You need to know them so that you can avoid them, so that there should be a good communication between you and your learners. And then still under chapter 5, you need to know how to establish positive educator-learner relationship. If you do not have a positive relationship with your learners, they will not even bother to listen to you. If you don't like your learners, you will just teach them, just to pass information without, showing any interest on whether they understand you or not. So as a teacher, you need to start by establishing that positive educator-learner relationship with each and every learner, not only with certain learners. You also need to know how to create positive peer relationship. Sometimes you have a good relationship with your learners, but if the learners themselves do not have peer relationship that is positive, then you will have bullying, you will have other learners absenting themselves from school because they don't want to be in a situation where they are persecuted by other learners. So you need to know how to create such a positive peer relationship. Now, chapter 5 is still very long. Positive climate, classroom climate, how to create it, and then how to create a good learning milieu, how to, it's environment. How do you create that learning? How do you make it possible for the learners to learn easily in the classroom? And then, of course, learner motivation. If the learners are not motivated, they will not learn. They need some kind of motivation. How do you do that as a teacher? What is motivation? You need to know that. Discipline as well is important. If your class or your learners are not disciplined, it means you will have problem where, a lot of problems actually, where when other learners are trying to learn, others are busy disturbing them and disturbing you. You know, a lot of things can happen during the lesson when you are presenting the lesson. So make sure that you know how to handle the learners, how to discipline them, how to create that environment. Now, also, there are 20 steps, or should I say there's a model. It's called the 20-step discipline model. It assists you. This model assists you, 20 steps. You should be able to really come up with a situation where your learners are disciplined in class. So go and learn about those 20 steps and make sure that your learners are disciplined so that each and everyone has gotten the opportunity to learn. You must be able to identify the steps that you need to implement in different situations. You may not need step number 3 or step number 19, for example, in a particular situation. However, you may need the same steps for you to implement in another different situation, still in class, in order to guide your learners towards a positive classroom environment. Now we are coming to chapter 6. The heading for chapter 6 is managing participation in the classroom. As a teacher, you need to make sure that all your learners are participating. Not only few learners, not only those that we regard as intelligent, no. Each and every learner must be involved. Now, learner motivation. Like I said previously, the learners need motivation. What improves learner motivation? You need to know so that you can try, because learners are also human beings. A learner may come to the class demotivated for one reason or another. You must be able to intentionally improve your learner motivation. Your learners must be motivated. They must have the interest to learn. You need to learn about theories of human motivation. Generally, as human beings, what is it that motivates us? Because learners are human beings. And now different theorists have got different theorists, that is now the authors, the experts have got different theories on human motivation. Learn about them, know what is this theorist saying about his or her theories, and differentiate between them. Right. We have what we call extrinsic motivation. we also have intrinsic motivation. You need to know the difference between the two. Which of the two should you use when, or which one should you emphasize as a teacher? When what happens? Okay. Now, what is also important under chapter 6 is understanding learning. What does it mean? Learning. You may think that as teacher, no, learning is learning. No. There are serious aspects that we need to know as educators, as teachers. What is learning? Because you are expecting your learners to learn. So you need to know what is it that you are expecting from your learners. Now you need to know about understanding constructivist teaching and learning. How it happens, so that you can be able to create an environment where learners can learn constructively and you can teach them in the same manner. Understanding experiential learning. How does it happen? As a teacher, you need to know what is the meaning of experiential learning, so that you can be able to create that situation. In other words, as a teacher, you will learn that you have to understand learning by all means, so that if one method is not working, you can use the other method. Or depending on the type of lesson that you are presenting, that you are teaching that particular day, you need to plan to say, for this particular lesson, I need to use experiential teaching so that my learners can have experiential learning. So that is why you need to understand all of them. Still under 6, managing cooperative learning in the classroom. Now, what is cooperative learning? And why is it important for teachers to implement cooperative learning in class, or what does it mean? How important is it in the classroom? Do learners need to learn cooperatively? And what does that mean? What are the dynamics? What should happen? How do I manage that? Now, there are components of organizing cooperative learning in the classroom. What needs to be considered? You need to know what is it that I need to consider, what is it that I need to do when I am saying I am organizing the components of cooperative learning. Preparation for cooperative learning is also important. What is it that you need to do before implementing that in the classroom? Positive interdependence. Now here the authors are saying is either the learners are sinking or they are swimming together. Like I said earlier on, learners need to be independent, or should I say they need to be independent as well as interdependent. But they should be interdependent in a positive way. They should not be interdependent in a negative way, because if it is negative, then it means they are sinking. But if they are interdependent in a positive way, it means now they are surviving. They are on their way to becoming independent. Learn about those things because they're very important. What is individual and group accountability? You should be able to differentiate between the two. When the learners are working together as a group, are they individually accountable for certain things? Well, we don't know about that. However, we know as educators that even if learners are working as a group, each and every individual must contribute towards group work. So you need to know how to encourage and how to manage and make sure that individuals within groups are accountable. And then you also need to know how to differentiate between individual accountability and group accountability. And then what is also important still under chapter 6 is face-to-face interaction. They should meet to work. If learners have to work together, they should meet and work together. I know that it may be difficult during the COVID-19. However, learners have been working online as groups, and learners can still see one another even when they are online, just like you'll be watching this video and looking at me, at my face. Okay, you need to know under normal circumstances and under circumstances where they are learning online, what is it that you can do? Come up with your own creative ways of improving what we already have in the system. We have what we call interpersonal and small group or small teams, skills. You need to know what are interpersonal skills. You need to know what are small group skills, so that as a teacher, you can be able to teach your learners about all these skills in order for the learners to have interpersonal skills, in order for the learners to know, if I work in a group, what is it that I need to have as a skill? Right. Now, we also have group evaluation. The learners need to be given an opportunity to assess their own progress. If learners are working together, they must be able to check whether they are succeeding in what they are trying to achieve. So you as a teacher need to know how to guide the learners towards that. But at the end of the day, we must have groups of learners who are able to say, as a group, we think we are not progressing. How about changing our strategy? No, guys, we are now discussing other things. Come back, let's talk about this. Or let's not take our discussion further. Remember, we were told to discuss about this thing. So let's just limit our discussion to this project, to this problem that we are resolving. Teach your learners how to do that, but you need to know how to do it before you can teach them. Chapter 6 is a bit longer, but we are getting there. Under chapter 6 still we have models of cooperative learning. So as you can see, cooperative learning is very, very important. There are two main types of models that are there for cooperative learning. You need to know these models, be able to differentiate between the two, and of course, in your head, be able to come up with examples. Making groups work. Sometimes teachers think bringing the children together automatically in a group, they should be able to work. It's not as easy as all that. In some groups, there's no work that is done. It's just discussions. People are laughing if the learners do not know how to make their group work. So as a teacher, you need to understand these things so that you are able to do what? To teach your learners, so that your learners are also able to learn and implement these things when they are working as a group. Number one, create a supportive group atmosphere. If you are going to group your children and let them work as groups, if you are now implementing this cooperative learning, make sure that each and every group has got a positive group atmosphere. And there are aspects that need to be considered. So the teacher needs to know how to create a supportive group atmosphere. As a teacher, you must also create an effective group environment. How do you make sure that learners who are working as a group are actually working effectively as a group? You need to be able to create that environment for each and every group. There are conditions that you need to set as a teacher with each and every group, so that each and every group should implement in order for them to have an effective group environment. They need to know, what does it mean being an effective group member? Learners should know how to be such members. They can be in a group, but they need to know that as a person, I am responsible to, I need to be able to contribute to make sure that this group of ours is effective. So I have to regard myself as an effective member of this group. Obviously, part of it would be each learner must know that they need to contribute towards the product that the group will come up with. Still under chapter 6, managing participation in the classroom, we have diversity in the classroom. You need to know that children are different. They come from different homes. They come from different cultures. However, what is culture? You need to know and understand the meaning of culture. Define culture. Culture and education. What is the relationship? You need to know that relationship, because you are in education, the children are coming with their own cultures. The classroom culture, you need to create a classroom culture. We know that different learners come with their different cultures. However, you still have to establish one culture of that particular classroom. How do you do that? You need to learn about that. How do cultural aspects impact on the teaching learning process? Because of course, there will be cultural aspects that may impact on your teaching, and that may impact on the learning of the learners. You need to know about these things so that you can manage them. And then a learning environment that supports positive intercultural contact. You need to know how to create that. How to create a supportive and a positive intercultural contact. In other words, how to bring together all these different cultures that the learners are bringing into class to make sure that we all benefit from, as learners, you as a teacher also. You need to understand exceptionality, multiple intelligences. You need to know these multiple intelligences in order to identify them in the classroom. There are children who are exceptionally intelligent. There are children who are not so intelligent. You need to be able to know how to understand them, to identify them, to manage them, to encourage others to be on the same level with other children. Using multiple intelligences in the creation of classroom environment. Of course, different talents that children are bringing into class. You need to, that is why I said you need to understand them. You need to identify them so that you can use them to the benefit of the class, where you as a teacher will be creating a very positive classroom environment, because you will be understanding what these talents and these multiple intelligences are. Then, towards the end of chapter 6, Remember chapter 6, managing participation in the classroom. Okay. Now, teaching methods and learning styles. Introduction is very important because it will make you aware of the relationship between the teaching method and the learning styles. Do learning styles, are they affected by the teaching methods, or are the teaching methods affecting the learning styles? You need to know about those things. You need to know the relationship in order to make sure that whatever teaching method that you choose should affect the learning styles of the children in a positive manner. You need to know these learning styles, what the definition. You need to know what are they, the relationship between teaching and learning styles. Like I said, it is important because you need to be able to make the classroom work. That was chapter 6. Now we come into chapter 6. We are coming to chapter 7. Chapter 7, the heading for chapter 7 is managing parental involvement. Children, the learners are children. The learners come from homes. The learners have parents. Sometimes they have guardians, but you need to know how to manage that. And the fact that the heading says managing parental involvement, it means parents must be involved in their children's education. However, their involvement should be managed. Now, as a teacher, as a student now, you need to be able to define the term parent. What does a parent mean? The rights and duties of parents, you need to know them so that you do not infringe on the rights of the parents. At the same time, you need to know the duties of the parents so that you don't find yourself performing the duties of the parents or preventing the parents to perform their duties as parents to their children, who are your learners. Parental resistance to involvement in classroom management. Yes, of course. Parents must also be involved, but there are some parents who are resistant. What are reasons for that? Because you may find that parents have their own reasons why they resist, why they do not want to be involved in the classroom management. You need to know what these reasons are so that you can work towards resolving them together with the parents. The model of parental involvement. You need to know different models. There are a number of models that are talked about, explained in the book. Know about them so that you can be able to choose the one that is suitable for a particular parent or for a particular situation. And then we have managing an integrated approach to parental involvement. How do you do that? Still under chapter 7, managing parental involvement. Initiate contact and interview. As the educator, as the teacher, you are the one who is responsible to initiate contact with the parent and to interview the parent. And I'm not saying the interview must be like a very formal one. No. It may not be like too structured, but you need to initiate that so that you meet the parents of your learners, so that you can understand your learners better because you would know where they are coming from. You need to be able to identify the needs, the goals, and the objectives of parental involvement. When you meet with the parents of a child or the parents of your learners in general. You need to know what is it that I need to talk about. And you also need to know what is it that I want to achieve. Am I going to talk about school fees? Am I going to talk about the behavior of the child in class? You have to identify those before you even start meeting the parents. Now we have collaboration and communication with parents. There are ways in which this should be done. Collaboration and partnerships. What are characteristics of effective collaboration? Collaboration cannot just be working together. Okay, the parents are coming, we're having this function at school. Okay, what are the dynamics? What is our role as parents? As teachers, what are the roles of parents when we meet and form this partnership? Either for raising funds for the school or either for helping the children with homework. But you need to know that there are characteristics of effective collaboration. We don't want just collaboration and partnerships. We want effective collaboration. We want effective partnerships with parents. Still under chapter 7, communicating effectively with parents. What tools are effective to use? If you want to have communication with parents, you need to make sure that your communication is effective. So you need to know, can you really write an email to a parent who is not able to read or who doesn't know how to use a computer? That would not be wise. So you need to understand your parents. That is why it is important for you to have met with the parents right from the beginning, so that you know that in future, what is it that I use? Can I just email this parent? Will the parent be able to access the email? Will the parent be able to understand when I send an SMS or a WhatsApp? Or will the parent understand if I set a meeting on Zoom or on Teams, Microsoft Teams? Those are most important things that you need to know. Now, there are barriers to collaboration and participation. What are the barriers? All the time, there will always be barriers of communication. There will always be barriers for partnerships. You need to know what is it that can prevent collaboration between the teacher and the parents and participation of the parents. How can parents be involved in the school? Parental involvement needs to be explained to parents. Parents, there are models that are explained in your book. Parents need to know if they want to be involved in the school, in the education of their children. What is it that they can do? How can they get involved? Parents, for example, cannot be involved in the issues of teaching. No, those issues are for teachers. Parents, in other words, you need to be able to outline, and for you to be able to outline to parents how to get involved, go and learn about the models, different models, and then you'll be able to advise the parents. Now we are coming to the last chapter for this module. The last chapter's heading is Managing Classroom Through Effective Administration. Remember, teachers are managers, teachers are leaders, and teachers are administrators. But of course, we need to be able to define our role as administrators. The tasks of a register teacher. As a teacher, there are people, of course, who are not necessarily registered teachers. However, you need to know that if you are given a class, then you are called a registered teacher. What is it that you need to do? Know the contents of each and every task and how to compile them. And you need to know to take responsibility for as a registered class, as a registered teacher for your class. Sorry, you are responsible for that class. Financial administration. If there are contributions, monetary contributions that the students are doing towards the school or the parents are doing towards the school, you need to manage that within your class. Know how to do that. The filing systems. How do you compile files? You need to have certain files. This is a financial file. The file that outlines the finances of the class. And here we have a file that talks about the progress of the learners or whatever. Know about financial systems. Annual work schedule. You have an annual work schedule. You need to know what you are expected to do in each and every year. You must know that right from the beginning of the year so that you plan ahead, and of course, you are able to administer that throughout the year. Assessment plans. You need to compile assessment plans. What is it that needs to be inside an assessment plan? You go and learn about those things because they are very important. Formal assessment tasks and memoranda. How do you compile such things? There are prescripts. There are ways in which the Department of Education have guided us on how to compile some of these things. Know how to do such things, because then you will become an effective administrator as a teacher and be able to manage your classroom effectively. Still under chapter 8, the textbooks and other learning and teaching support materials. How do you manage them? Do you need a list? Do you need to write the names of the learners? What is it? But the most important thing is that you can't have textbooks and other learning and teaching material without managing them. The record sheets. What are the record sheets? How do we compile them? Be able to understand how to do these things so that you do them properly, and then you are going to become an effective administrator and a good manager of a classroom. Control and assessment in the classroom. How to manage assessment? You need to know the implications for the classroom. You need to know the role of technology in managing classroom effectively, because these days we do need technology. So you need to know how to manage such things, because all of us want effective classrooms. Now, all those 8 chapters are important. What I have outlined to you to say, you need to be able to use your own words when explaining certain concepts, except where you are told to define. Because when you define, then it means you can write the concept, define the concepts using the same words that are used in the textbook. However, most of the time, make sure that you are able to apply what you have learned in your textbook into your classroom. If you can do that, you will be a good teacher, a manager of your classroom, a leader in your classroom, and more importantly, an administrator of your classroom. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. good luck with your examination, not only for TAM2601, but generally good luck with all your exams. Use your time wisely, or else you are going to lose it. All the best. Keep well. Thank you.